Do we know who's filling in for her?
I am Sonia.
Oh,
I'm
Sonia.
just recording the meeting and stuff. I've never done her meetings, and I know these are different than the planning commission, but I'm giving it my best.
Oh, good to see you. So I will
Okay,
hear you.
I know. Okay, thank you.
I think we may be at quorum, so I think we may be able to start.
How many is the quorum for you guys?
I think we only need, oh, we had a few other board committee members join.
It should be 5, Chair.
Okay.
5 of the
Yeah,
eight.
Alan here. It's actually 3 can operate the meeting. It's different than the planning commission. Sonia, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, does that include the new, that's inclusive of all members because we have new members as well.
That's right. We need somebody to chair, somebody to make a motion, and somebody to second the motion. And so as long as we have at least 3 people, we can conduct business.
Okay, I see Commissioner Grill.
Looks like there's 6 total, including you, Chair.
Oh, I see Commissioner Riley. Okay, yeah, we're ready to go then. I'll go ahead and start. Sonia, are you recording?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. All right, the February 25th, 2021 meeting of the Zoning Committee of St. Paul Planning Commission will now come to order. The chair of the Planning Commission has previously determined that it is not practical or prudent for the Planning Commission and its committees to meet in person pursuant to the Minnesota Statute Section 13D.02. Considering the COVID-19 health pandemic, it is not feasible for any member of the Zoning Committee to be present at any of our regular location. Committee members attending this meeting are doing so by telephone or other electronic means. It is also not feasible for members of the public to attend the meetings at its regular location due to the health pandemic and emergency. Arrangements have been made so that applicants and members of the public may also attend this meeting by telephone or other electronic means. Accordingly, no meeting is being held in City Hall Council Chambers at 15 West Kellogg Boulevard at this time. Again, the public hearing is being conducted remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is also being recorded. Even though this hearing is being conducted remotely, the committee's public hearing rules and procedures still apply as if the committee were meeting in its usual place. These rules and procedures are as follows. The Zoning Committee's recommendations and findings must have a rational basis based upon the St. Paul Zoning Code and applicable state and federal law. The Zoning Committee's actions today are recommendations. They are not final decisions. The committee's recommendations are forwarded to the Planning Commission for final action. The committee's recommendations will be considered by the full Planning Commission at its regular meeting held 1 week from Friday. The Planning Commission's meeting is open to the public, but it is not a public hearing. The decision of the Planning Commission on conditional use permits, non-conforming use permits, site plans, variances, and other zoning permits are final decisions unless appealed to the City Council. The decisions of the Planning Commission on rezoning applications are only recommendations. By state law, the City Council, following a public hearing before it makes the final decisions on rezoning applications. The following rules and procedures governing today's public hearing of the Zoning Code Committee is as follows. The chair will call the secretary to take attendance by the committee. Committee members will need to respond verbally for the record. For committee members during the meeting, please mute your microphones except when recognized by the chair to speak. Discussion is intended for committee members and staff only except during public hearing items when the chair invites individuals to speak. Staff will be monitoring microphones and muting committee members and members of the public as needed. Use the Teams chat function only to indicate that you have a question or comment. The chat function is part of the official meeting record Type Q for question or question into the chat feature when you have a question, and or C or a comment if you have a comment. The chair and staff will monitor the chat function so the chair may recognize committee members and staff in an orderly way. After being recognized by the chair, committee members should state their name before speaking. This helps others in the meeting and assists with the official recording. When the chair calls the committee to vote on an agenda item, the secretary will be called to do a roll call. Committee members must respond verbally for the record and vote either yes or no. Cases will be called in the order they appear on the agenda, and the chair reserves the right to limit the length of testimony if deemed necessary. I'll ask the recording secretary now to conduct a roll call of the committee members that are present for this meeting. Each committee member should acknowledge their presence by saying here.
Okay. Commissioner DeJoy. Commissioner Grill.
Yes.
Commissioner Hood.
Yes.
Commissioner Rango Morales.
Here.
Commissioner Riley.
Here.
Commissioner Said.
Here.
Commissioner Tagioff.
Here.
And of course, the chair.
Here, thanks, Sonia.
You're welcome.
If you are a member of the public that would like to speak during a specific item's public hearing, you will be asked to identify yourself at the appropriate time. The public shall not utilize the chat function for communicating public testimony, as it is not considered part of the public record in this case. After I read the item number and title, staff will give an oral report of the item, and then I will open up the floor for committee members to ask questions to staff. After that, I will open up the public hearing on that item. All testimonies and questions will be addressed to the chair. You may speak in favor or in opposition, and you will be limited to no more than 2 minutes. Please, people who exceed the time limit may have their microphones muted by staff. I will first ask for testimony from those in favor and then from those that are in opposition. You must provide your name and address for the public record. Please mute yourself during this meeting except during the 2 minutes when you are specifically called upon to speak. You are allowed to speak only once, with the exception of the applicant, who will be allowed the opportunity to respond to the testimony and answer committee questions. All right, we're going to move on to our zoning committee minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the February 11th zoning committee minutes at this time.
This is Commissioner Grill. I move the minutes.
Thanks, Commissioner Grill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. That motion, there has been a motion by Commissioner Grill and seconded by Commissioner Hood. Can I have a vote, please?
Commissioner Tagioff.
I'll abstain.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Said.
Yes.
Commissioner Riley.
I'll also abstain as I wasn't at the meeting.
Commissioner Rango Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Hood, of course.
Yes.
Commissioner Grill.
Yes.
Commissioner DeJoy, is she here? Okay. And Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Chair Baker. Here, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, that motion passes. Thanks, Anya. Moving on to site plan review. For the site plan review committee, there is one item so far for the March 2nd meeting. It is 749 Mount Curve Boulevard. It's a new multifamily residential. From John Snyder, 749 Mount Curve LLC. All right, with that, we will move into our first item for old business. It's James Avenue Apartments, a conditional use permit for the 69 feet 6 inches building height variances for front yard setback and rear yard setback. This item was laid over from our last meeting, and we all should have received a memo from Mr. Richardson. But there are recommendations and a motion that I will entertain after Mr. Richardson does a brief overview from what's happening so far. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Richardson around this item.
Thank you, Chair Baker. Hello, Commissioners. The memo hopefully was pretty self-explanatory, and I won't take too much time. I know you have a lot on the agenda today. But I just wanted to note a couple of things. At the last zoning committee meeting, there was a recommendation from the committee to lay the item over to allow staff and the applicant to continue working on the project to see if there was any room for adjustment of the design, of looking at findings of in order to communicate as well with the committee members to better understand what their perspectives are. So that is ongoing and was not able to be completed before today, far enough in advance of today. So staff continues to meet and discuss where we're going to end up with the applicant. We are making progress and need a little bit more time to put everything together. So with that in mind, staff is recommending two actions today. The first is to lay the item over again until March 11th. And then second, as a separate action, to reopen the public hearing at that March 11th meeting, only to consider changes to the type of variance or the increase the degree of any variances that have previously been requested. And that's to not open the public hearing on parts of the application that have already been discussed. So that is what I have, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Mr. Richardson. Before I open it up to my colleagues, I just want to say thank you for you and the team and working with the applicant. I do appreciate you sending out the memo to give us insight into what's happening and expressing and providing an overview. At this time, I'll open up to my colleagues. Any questions for Mr. Richardson? If not, I'll also entertain a motion, and I will need this to happen. I need two motions. The first, so we'll need to vote twice. First motion is to lay over this application to the March 11th zoning committee meeting. Second motion.
Is this,
Oh, go for it.
I have a question for staff.
I think that is Commissioner Rangel Morales.
It is.
Okay.
I raised my little hand here, but
I'm
I don't
so
know if you
sorry.
can see. Mr. Richardson, in reviewing the notes of or the minutes from the last hearing, will there be a condition of the affordable units as part of the, because the motion or the staff recommendation was to deny, there were no conditions imposed on it, but I'm just wondering, given prior or other projects that we've had where the applicant is okay with that condition of affordability included into the approval, I'm wondering if that's a discussion you've had with the applicant as well.
Thank you. Through the chair, Commissioner Rangel Morales. Yeah, actually, I had a draft condition prepared for 2 weeks ago that basically said that it essentially quotes the zoning code, the note that requires the 10% at 60% AMI, and in order for the applicant to achieve the FAR that they've applied for, that needs to be in place anyway before permits are issued. So if we get to a point where there's a recommendation for approval of the project, that condition will be added.
Thank you. Chair, I'm also ready to make a motion to delay this to March 11th if no one else has any other questions.
All right, it sounds like I have a motion by Commissioner Rangel Morales to lay over this application to March 11th. Do I have a second? I see Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Grill, second.
Okay, I have a second by Commissioner Grill. Any more discussion? All right, Sonia, can we move forward with the vote?
Commissioner Tagioff,
Yes.
Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales,
Yes.
Chair Baker,
Yes.
unanimous.
All right, that motion passes. Moving forward, I would also entertain a motion to reopen the public hearing at the March 11th zoning committee meeting for this application, which is James Avenue Apartments. However, only for the purposes of the changes that are being made. I would ask Mr. Richardson, do I need to have any more specificity to that motion?
Chair, I think that's good that it's specific to any changes that will come out in the packet.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
Chair Baker, this is Commissioner Rangel Morales. I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Rangel Morales. Do I have a second?
Yes. I'll second.
Was that Commissioner Said?
Yes.
Okay, that was second by Commissioner Said. Any further discussion? If none, Sonia, can we have a vote?
Commissioner Grill,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales,
Yes.
Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagioff,
Yes.
Chair Baker,
Yes.
And Commissioner DeJoy is here now. I was having connection issues. I vote yes.
okay, thank you. 0. Passes.
All right, that motion passes. Thanks, Sonia. Thanks, Mr. Richardson. Looking forward to the next committee meeting, hearing this presentation. Thank you. All right, we will move on to our first item of new business, Provincial House. We're seeing this back before us, a conditional use permit for emergency housing facility serving 22 to 30 families at 1880 Randolph Avenue. And to provide the staff's report, we have Ms. Dadlis.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Good afternoon. I'm Katie Dadlis, a planner with the City of St. Paul and the planner assigned to the Highland Park neighborhood. Please let me know that you can hear me. Great, thank you. Also, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So, if you can let me know if you can see that, that would be good as well.
We can.
You can, okay.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So as the chair said, the conditional use permit request before you today is to allow an emergency housing facility. And some commissioners may recall that this was an item on a previous zoning committee agenda right at the end of last year, but the applicant had requested a continuance, so there was no public hearing held on it yet. So today is the day for the public hearing. I just wanted to orient you real quick to the project site, which is outlined here in blue. On the north here, just to orient you, is Randolph Avenue, and on the right-hand side here off the screen would be Fairview Avenue. And the site of the proposed housing or emergency housing facility is here in a building called the Provincial House. Immediately to the west of that is a chapel and a reception area, retreat house called the Carondelet Center. And then just to the north of here is an administration building. Access to the site is off of Randolph here, and there's another access here. You can see access drives and accessory parking around the site. And you can see there's a multifamily development down here to the south and to the east, where there's senior housing. The St. Kate's campus is to the west, and residential multifamily uses to the north and east, and single family uses to the north and to the west. Just a real quick look at the zoning map here. You can see that the project site and the senior housing facilities are zoned multifamily. The campus area is zoned single family. And to the north, there's some multifamily zoning to the east and some single family zoning to the west. I also want to just real quickly, for those who haven't had a chance to visit the site, just show some photographs of the area as well. This is the Provincial House building here, and this is the building in which the proposed emergency housing facility would be located. And this building here is the chapel immediately to the west, and the Carondelet Center building further to the west there. In the foreground here is the Provincial House building, and then beyond that is the multifamily senior housing that I was mentioning earlier. This is the administration building north of the Provincial House. And these are just some of the multifamily uses on the north side of Marshall Avenue. So Interfaith Action of Greater St. Paul is the applicant, and they intend to lease the space in the Provincial House building to establish the emergency housing facility to serve families as part of its Project Home program. The applicant states that most of the program residents are children. Volunteers come to the site to assist full-time staff in running the program, including 3 meals a day in the facility's dining room. And the facility will be staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are 4 required findings that must be met to approve the use. The first is a distance requirement, and the proposed facility meets this distance requirement of being 1,320 feet from congregate living facilities with more than 4 adult residents. The second requirement is one that relates to uses in zoning districts other than RM2, and therefore is not applicable to this particular site. The third requirement specifies the need for a conditional use permit for the number of residents that are proposed, and the applicant submitted the conditional use permit application for the facility, and this condition can be met if the conditional use permit is granted for the use. And the fourth requirement relates to lot area. This condition is met. The lot size of more than 350,000 square feet is more than adequate to meet the lot area requirement for the use, which is 29,000 square feet. In addition to those specific standards and requirements for the use, we have the 5 findings that are required for all conditional uses that need to be met. The first relates to compliance with the comprehensive plan, which is found to be met. Several goals of and policies of our housing chapter of our 2040 plan are cited in the staff report, including policy H18 that calls for fostering the preservation and production of housing for people experiencing homelessness. And in addition, the Highland Park District Plan includes a goal that calls for increasing the diversity of housing options so that people of all ages, cultures, ethnicities, and incomes have a place in the neighborhood. And a plan policy calls for encouraging developments that allow all residents and families to stay in the neighborhood as their life circumstances change. And the plan goes on to say these changes may include aging in community, having children, seeking to upsize or downsize, and change in income. The second finding relates to providing adequate ingress and egress to minimize traffic congestion. And the property has vehicle access from Randolph, as I showed on the aerial. No changes are proposed for that. Most facility residents will not have vehicles and will rely on nearby transportation. But there is a parking lot for facility residents who do have vehicles, and parking is also available for program staff and volunteers. The third finding relates to the proposed use not being detrimental to existing character of development in the immediate neighborhood. And staff finds this condition to be met. The use will be located entirely within a portion of the Provincial House building, which was designed to provide space for congregate living, and the use will not change the character of the area or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare. The fourth finding relates to the use not impeding normal and orderly development. And this condition is met. The surrounding area is fully developed and the use will be located entirely within a portion of an existing building designed for congregate living. And the final finding relates to the use conforming to applicable regulations of the zoning district in which it's located, and the proposed use will conform to all of the regulations. So based on these findings, staff is recommending approval of a conditional use permit for an emergency housing facility serving 22 to 30 families at 1880 Randolph Avenue. And finally, I would just like to add that the Highland District Council did vote to support the conditional use permit. Copy of their letter is in the list of comments that were received. And I'll just finally note that we received about 60 or more than 60 letters, I guess, in support and about 5 letters in opposition. So that's all that I have. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for the report, Ms. Dallas. I feel like I'm hearing an echo. If you can mute yourself if you're not speaking at this time, it'll be helpful. All right, I will open up to my colleagues. Any questions at this time for Ms. Dallas? I did have one question, and it is, at one point, we understand that this came before us at one point and was removed. Have there been changes from that time until now? And if so, could you talk about those large, I mean, you don't have to be completely detailed specific, but I'm just interested on what changed.
Chair Baker, no, there were no changes between the original submittal and the one that you're seeing today. It's
Okay,
the same
thank
staff
you.
report, same
Okay.
findings.
Are there any other questions for my colleagues? All right, if not, I'd like to call up the applicant at this time for the application to speak, and if they would like to add anything to the staff's report.
Chair Baker, my name is Brian Alton. Members of the committee, thank you for your time today. I am an attorney at 951 Grand Avenue. I'm also a member of the board of directors of Interfaith Action, Greater St. Paul. Thank you for your attention, and we'd like your support. I'm going to introduce Randy Roth, who is the executive director of Interfaith Action of Greater St. Paul, as well as Sarah Legal, who is the executive director of Project Homes program through Interfaith Action. And then lastly, Mark Vanderscheid, who is an attorney with the Taft firm, who is representing the Sisters of St. Joseph Grendelette and the property owner. With that, I'll ask Randy Roth to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you and when you do present or speak, could you please say your name and then the address for the record?
Chair Baker, thank you so much. My name is Randy Elise Roth. I'm the Executive Director of Interfaith Action of Greater St. Paul, and our office address is 1671 Summit Avenue in St. Paul. Thank you. Thank you to Brian Alton, our board member, and I'd like to recognize also Pastor Javen Swanson is with us today and is our board member and a pastor at a church that has historically hosted Project Home, Gloria Dei Lutheran. I'll just take a moment to say that you may not know the name Interfaith Action, but you may be more familiar with our former name, which is the St. Paul Area Council of Churches, about a 115-year-old organization, and that address is right behind Ramsey Junior High School. Interfaith Action believes that opportunity grows and poverty recedes when people of faith invest themselves in effective action. And that's what this program is about. We mobilize and support faith communities who are trying to stabilize their neighbors, help their neighbors stabilize and achieve economic mobility. Project Home is one of our main program areas. In a moment, I'll turn this over to Sarah Legal, the director of Project Home, who will tell you about how faith communities in this neighborhood have been successfully hosting Project Home for decades. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair Baker, and thank you, Randy. So my name is Sarah Legal, and I'm the Director of Project Home. Also, we're main offices out of Interfaith Action on 1671 Summit Avenue. And I've been the director of the program now for over 20 years. And during those over 2 decades, we have had the pleasure of working with actually many, many congregations that are in our Highland Park neighborhood, in the McRoland area, and along Summit Avenue as well. So you might not know us, but we've actually been in those neighborhoods for many, many decades with the families that we serve. We've been hosted, like Randy said, Gloria Day Lutheran, St. Mark's Catholic, Messiah Episcopal, which is right there on Ford Parkway, Cretan-Durham Hall Catholic High School on Randolph, Fairmount Avenue United Methodist, Mount Zion Temple, House of Hope Presbyterian, and St. John's. So we believe we've had a long track record of being really good neighbors, and we hope to continue that at the Provincial House. We provide so much more than warm meals and cots. This is really a program that is run by some amazing staff members that I get to work with day in and day out, and a whole wonderful crew of dedicated volunteers that really help families start to heal from the trauma of homelessness. And I just wanted to share that part of the work is really working on getting families back on their feet, and we have an amazing social work team. We made our all-time record last month in January. We housed 9 families. We got 9 families back on their feet and into affordable housing. And the last thing I just want to share with you quickly is that currently 85% of our guests are children under the age of 12, and our youngest guest right now is 1 month old.
Hey, I'm sorry.
This is Mark Manderscheid. I'm an attorney with Taft, Stettinius, and Hollister, the former Briggs and Morgan law firm, and reside at 2136 Goodrich Avenue in St. Paul. I have been a volunteer for Interfaith Action for many years, but today I'm representing the Sisters of St. Paul. The Sisters have a long history in St. Paul of directly providing religious, medical, educational, and social service programs in St. Paul. In this particular instance, the Sisters are looking to provide some of their real estate. The Provincial House building has been on the Sisters' property for many years, but it has been empty for the last number of years. The Sisters then will be the landlord to Interfaith Action, which will provide the direct services. The Sisters are very pleased that this empty real estate will be able to find a new use and will provide a home temporarily for people who need to have a step up, who need assistance in finding their way back into their own housing. The Sisters asked the zoning committee to grant the conditional use permit so that the Sisters can continue their ministries through Interfaith Action. Thank you.
Chair Baker,
Yes.
we have one more person to speak on behalf as the applicant's presentation, and that's Reverend Javin Swanson from Gloria Day Lutheran Church.
Thank you, Chair Baker. My name is Javin Swanson. I'm one of the pastors at Gloria Day in Highland Park, and I personally live at 1515 Sherburne Avenue in St. Paul. And as you've heard, I'm a member of the board of Interfaith Action as well. Gloria Day has a decades-long relationship with Project Home. We've been sheltering families in our building during the month of December for more than 20 years. In all those years working together, Project Home has become a trusted partner. We know that their team runs a tight ship, that they have a wealth of experience helping homeless families transition into permanent housing. They are very good at what they do. On the rare occasion that issues have arisen with any of our guests, Project Home staff has responded quickly, professionally, and graciously to address the situation. I also just want to say a word about the impact on members of our congregation of participating in Project Home. Every evening and each overnight during the month of December, including Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Eve, we have church volunteers who prepare a meal, interact with the guests, play with the kids in the gym. We engage around 150 members of the church each year. The interaction we have with the families who stay in our building has helped us to personalize the issue of homelessness and to understand more deeply the dynamics in play for families who are housing insecure. Spending time with Project Home guests helps us to develop empathy and to understand our neighbors, our homeless neighbors, as just that, neighbors, who we believe we are called to love and serve. Project Home is designed to foster these kinds of relationships, so we aren't just housing people, but transforming lives and transforming our community. So I urge you to support this proposal today, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Reverend Swanson. And Mr. Alton, at this time, I think that completed the presentation.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, I will now open it up to my colleagues. Any questions from the presenters, the applicant? All right, if not, thank you so much. You may be called to come back if we have public testimony and you want to speak, if someone speaks in opposition of the application. And so before I move on to opening the public hearing, Ms. Dadlis, is there anything that you wanted to add at this time?
Nothing at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move forward and opening up the public hearing for this application. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? All right, I see I think it's Katie LeClaire. If so, Ms. LeClaire, you can come on and move forward at this time and speak in favor of the application. You will have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I work at Gloria Day. My name is Katie LeClaire. I live at 4147 17th Avenue South in Minneapolis.
Thank you.
Like Pastor Javen, I have seen a great transformation in our membership, being able to interact with Project Home guests. I work with the teenagers at our church, and I have had conversations with some of our teenagers that met classmates who are guests at Project Home, and how that changed their lives to know that they could serve their neighbors in this way and be a great friend in this respect. So I would love to see, though, we love having guests from Project Home in December. They stay in our Sunday school rooms on cots, and they have their TV lounge and their craft room in our youth center. And it's a beautiful thing, but I really would look forward to those guests having a more permanent place as they're waiting to get real housing with beds, and so their lives that are already in crisis wouldn't have to be so disruptive moving from month to month. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I also see Mark, I think the last name is Hope. Are you here to speak in favor of this application?
Yes, with a qualified in favor, yep.
Okay, if you're here to speak in favor of the application, you can go ahead at this time. Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Mark Hoppy, 1887 Randolph, and I'm speaking in favor of the application. We support the homeless shelter, but again, with qualification. A couple things of note that are qualified in favor of. The St. Paul, because the city of St. Paul is, the definition of family is under review. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of that, but there's 3 options of the definition of family, which is any 6 adults that can live together with 1 minor children, family or any five adults can live together, or any number of adults who are all related to each other by blood, marriage, guardian, domestic partnership, together with minor children in their family of 4 plus 4, any adults who are related to each other by blood, marriage, guardian, domestic partnership, as well as found 4 additional members and minors in their care. Because of the significant lack of quantitative definition of number of adults that could encompass in a family, it seems reasonable that Interfaith Action would provide the number of people, the maximum number of people that could live in the housing facility. I've asked this question to them, the Ramsey County, and I have not received a definitive answer. I think because of the significant ambiguity in what family is currently, because there's no there's still under the definition of family is under review by the city of St. Paul. I think it would be prudent that there's a total number of people that could live there. I think that would be reasonable, because right now with the definition of family, the ambiguity, it could be from 60 people to 400 people. Okay, it's quite broad. Secondly, with the conditional use also defines it. You're changing the conditional use for emergency housing, and emergency housing, if you look at the definition of that, is much broader than is much broader than the what's being represented, and I think there should be conditions that narrow what the use is less than emergency housing, so that it would not allow places like daily non-resident drop-in shelter services. It would be focused on families and families that were staying for a longer period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Hoppy.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Again, is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Last time, is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Okay, hearing none, I will move on to see if there's anyone. Mr. Eric Celeste, are you here to speak in favor of the application?
Sure. I just wanted to offer an unqualified yes, that my name is Eric Celeste. I live at 1993 Lincoln Avenue. Just a few minutes walk. I walk up to Carondelet Village and Carondelet Center quite a bit. And I'm excited that the sisters are offering us a chance to house people who need this kind of help in our neighborhood, and look forward to the opportunity to work with Interfaith Action and others in making this work in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Celeste. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Hearing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? And is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? All right, hearing none, the public hearing for this application is now closed. And because we had no one speak in opposition of the application, I don't need to call the applicant back. However, is there anything that the applicant would like to add at this time before I turn it over to my colleagues for discussion and a vote?
Chair Baker, this is Brian Alton. There's nothing else we want to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd open up to my colleagues for discussion and or a motion. Commissioner Grill.
So this is Commissioner Grill. I'd like to make a motion, and then I would like to, if we're having discussion, I have a comment I would like to make. So I would like to make a motion to move the staff recommendation to move approval of the conditional use permit for emergency housing facility serving 22 to 30 families at 1880 Randolph Avenue.
I have a motion by Commissioner Grill in approval of this application. Do I have a second?
Yes, this is Commissioner Sayed. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Said. Now I open up for discussion. I'll start with Commissioner Grill and then Commissioner Hood.
So this is Commissioner Grill, Christine Grill. I live in Highland Park, and I've been a member of the Planning Commission for a few years now. I cannot think of another application that has come through that has had more letters of support, and more letters of support that were written by actual people and not a form letter that people got together and sent over and over again. I am overjoyed at the number of volunteers in this organization that were willing to write letters. And I'm kind of just in awe of the willingness of people to send 60 letters in support of anything. Last night when I was scrolling through on my iPad, I just kept going, and I was really, really, really impressed. And at one point, maybe cried just a little bit because they were very touching. And so I just want to say thank you to the applicant and all the people that were supporting this application. It is moving, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Commissioner Grill. Commissioner Hood.
Thank you, Chair Baker. I want to second the comments of Commissioner Grill. I think that this is a fantastic project. The work that's been put in by the applicant is fantastic. And similarly, I was scrolling through the letters, the 84-page PDF, and it was heartwarming to read the letters of support from everyone. I live nearby where this is being proposed, and I'm very happy to have this in my neighborhood. So I would like to issue my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. I see Commissioner Tagiao.
Just really to echo the comments of my colleagues, I also read through the overwhelmingly positive testimony in favor, reviewed the plans, and it's almost hard to conceive of something that seems such a better fit, well thought out, well executed, and supported so broadly by the community. So I'm just absolutely in awe.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I also see Commissioner Riley.
Thank you, Chair Baker. I think it's I'm chuckling here because the very first zoning case that I presented in front of this body back in 2008 was a conditional use permit for the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet's new housing facility for the elderly, which is now where my wife also practices. So it's kind of a funny merging of all of the worlds. But I think I echo my colleagues' comments and especially note what Commissioner Grill said about not often seeing actual individuals supporting a product or a project as concisely and clearly. And I think it's really exciting to see a large facility being reused in a way that helps those who need sort of the most help at this time. And so I'm happy to be able to cast a vote on this particular project for those particular reasons. So thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any other commissioners like to make a comment or a question? Hearing none, I just like to, before we vote, I'd like to also just second everything I'm hearing from each colleague that has said something about this application. I have participated and supported as a volunteer for Project Home a few times. And one of the churches, network of churches that have connected with it. And I see how churches definitely, faith institutions have provided this service and supported this work. And it's really good to see now that there is a lot of, first of all, two things in my mind that are happening right now that is just really good for St. Paul. Number one, this organization is tackling homelessness in a way that is really helpful. And then number two, using a space that has not been used for a really good purpose. And so when you put those two things together, I think it's a true win-win for the city of St. Paul and our residents. And I really also appreciate the letters. We also, received some letters that were in opposition, but I agree with Commissioner Grill. The number of letters of support, individualistic letters of support spoke volumes. So thank you all for your work. Thank you for my colleagues. If there are no other comments at this time from my colleagues, I move to vote. Sonia, can we vote, please?
Commissioner DeJoy,
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Grill,
The same, yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Ro Morales,
Yes.
Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagioff,
Yes.
Chair Baker.
Yes.
Unanimous, 8-0.
Thank you, Sonia. That motion passes. Thank you so much for this application. We will now move on to our next item of business at 1509 Marshall. Conditional use permit to increase the maximum height at the rear property line from 22 feet to 36 feet. And we also have Ms. Dadlis for the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Baker. Again, this is Katie Dadlis. I'm the planner assigned to the Union Park neighborhood. Please let me know you can hear me again.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And as the chair said, this is a conditional use permit to increase the maximum building height of the rear property line. You gave a couple numbers that didn't sound right to me. I have from 25 feet to 38 feet. I just want to, I think you said 26 and 30.
I do
36.
apologize, 25 feet to 38 feet.
Yes. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
I apologize about that.
Yep. No, that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And let me know if you can see my screen.
We can see your screen, but I think it's still showing a provincial house.
Okay, I'm going to show a few different things here. I think I just wanted to start out with an aerial to orient you again. So this is the property in question here, 1509 Marshall Avenue. It's on the north side of Marshall Avenue, Snelling Avenue this way, Pascal Street this way. You can see it's a building here with some parking on the side and to the rear that's accessible from the alley. To the east is some commercial and residential uses. To the west, some residential and commercial uses. To the north, across the alley, is low density residential uses for the most part. And to the south is a self-storage use. And I think I have just a quick look at the zoning map. You can see that the north side of Marshall Avenue here is all zoned to T3. Some planning commissioners or zoning committee members may remember that a lot of Marshall Avenue was rezoned in 2018 with West Marshall Avenue zoning study, and this portion that's T3 was rezoned from I1 to T3 at that time. There's I1 where the self-storage is on the south side of Marshall, and an RT1 1 and 2 family residential zoning district to the north of the alley. Let's see, I also wanted to show some photographs for those who haven't had a chance to see the site. This is the building that fronts along Marshall Avenue and some of the off-street parking. This is the rear of that building from the alley where you can see the building and then area for parking here. This is the use immediately to the east along Marshall Avenue, some off-street parking and a commercial use, and then some residential use a little bit further down. These are residential uses immediately west of the building, and then the residential uses and then some commercial use a little bit further to the west as you approach Snelling Avenue. Again, this is the south side of Marshall Avenue where the self-storage is located. And these are the houses that front on Eichelhart Avenue, but that share an alley with 1509. And this is a view of those properties that front on Eichelhart but share that alley. Oh, let's see. Okay, so and then I wanted to share the site plan with you here. So the applicant owns the property and intends to demolish the building and the existing surface parking and construct a 4.5-story apartment building with parking below not completely enclosed, partially exposed, and then residential units, 4 units of residential above that parking. 60 units are planned with a mix of unit sizes. You can see on the site plan here that the primary, so that this is the south along here, this is Marshall Avenue. You can see the primary vehicle access is from Marshall Avenue that provides access to parking at the rear and pedestrian entrance right here along Marshall Avenue. The building itself is L-shaped. I just wanted to kind of show that to you so that this portion of the long part of the L is located along Marshall Avenue, and the shorter part occurs on the eastern part. But this building height here, which is the subject for the conditional use permit, does not extend the full length of the property, just about maybe that first eastern third. And I wanted to show elevations here because that might help to just understand the request for the variance or the conditional use permit. So maximum height of structures along the rear property line. And if you're looking at this bottom elevation here is the southern elevation, and this is what you would see along Marshall Avenue. But the one I want to focus on is the one here. This is the western elevation. And maximum height of structures along the rear property line is limited to 25 feet because the property abuts an RT1 residential zoning district. Structures can exceed 25 feet at the property line, or I'm sorry, they can exceed the 25 feet if they're stepped back from the property line a distance equal to the additional height. So in this case, the alley is along here. And Marshall Avenue would be along here. And so the property line is here, and this height here is 25 feet. And the building could be this high at this location. They have the building set back 16.5 feet or so. And so they can go, if they're stepping back this far, they can go up this high. And so the portion of the building that requires the conditional use permit is this triangular piece here that allows the building height at that location to be 52 feet and 1/4 inches. So there are plan finds to be met. The project is in an area identified in the land use plan as the mixed use and in a neighborhood node. Housing plan policy supports the development of new housing, particularly in areas identified as mixed use, and the project site is within a dwelling neighborhood node where higher density is encouraged. The use is also consistent with policies in the Union Park Community Plan. The second finding relates to providing adequate ingress and egress to minimize traffic congestion in the streets, and staff finds this finding to be met. As I noted on the site plan, primary vehicular access is from Marshall Avenue, and the applicant is working with Public Works staff who've reviewed the site plan to ensure that the proposed access operates safely along sloping topography of Marshall Avenue in this stretch. The third finding relates to the proposed use not being detrimental to the existing character of development in the immediate neighborhood or endangering public health, safety, and welfare. And staff finds this condition to be met. The project is designed to provide a building that's consistent with existing urban scale and design of the surrounding neighborhood and compatible with a neighborhood in transition. The applicant worked to ensure that existing solar panels north of the project site will have adequate solar access after the development is built, and the bulk of the proposed building is intentionally sited as far south as possible on the property to minimize effects on surrounding residences. The fourth finding relates to the use not impeding normal and orderly development, and staff finds this condition to be met. The low density residential uses to the north are anticipated to remain, though properties along Marshall are anticipated to be redeveloped over time, consistent with the new T3 zoning. And the final finding relates to the use conforming to applicable regulations of the district in which it's located, and staff finds this condition is met. The applicant did obtain a front yard setback variance for the project from the Board of Zoning Appeals prior to making the conditional use permit application. So based on these findings, staff recommends approval of a conditional use permit to increase maximum building height at the rear property line from 25 feet to 38 feet. And then I would like to add that the Union Park Community Council did vote to support the conditional use permit, and they supported the variance as well. And copies of their letters are in the staff packet. And I believe there were a couple of comments in opposition that were sent to you yesterday. That's all I have. I would be happy to answer questions that you have.
Thanks. Ms. Dallas. So I will move forward with Commissioner Rangel Morales.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for the presentation. Do you know why the applicant first went through the BZA for a variance and then came here for a conditional use permit? Sorry, I'm hearing an echo.
I can't hear.
I don't think anybody's speaking.
Oh, I was just, I guess I was saying, if you are, could you please mute your microphones if you are not speaking? I'm sorry about that. Please go ahead, Commissioner Rangel Morales.
When they could have just come here for both the variance and the conditional use application.
Chair Baker and Commissioner Rangel Morales, yes, they did not combine the variance with the conditional use permit because they did not know that they would need a conditional use permit until they went through site plan review. So they went and obtained the variance and applied for site plan review, and then the need for the conditional use permit was identified. And the applicant might be able to speak more directly to it, but I think what happened was it relates to how the building height is calculated and using the average existing grade. And so that's where the need for the conditional use permit arose through site plan review.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes, I have one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not see you. Commissioner Tech.
Thank you. So thank you for the presentation. I had just one technical question, which is probably more of almost a legal or a construction question regards to the zoning code. I note that the parcel is zone T3, which would generally allow a CUP of up to 90 feet in height generally. But there's these two provisions, right, in the table that accompanies 66331. There's provision E and provision G, and one of those talks about CUPs generally, and the other one says, well, hang on, if it's adjacent to a residential district, there's this 25-foot height with the step backs. And I wondered if you could comment on how is sort of best to sort of balance those two things. It seems the intent of that 25-foot and additional step back was to presumably preserve lighting views for adjacent residential, and the CUP under I think part footnote G was intended to sort of allow CUPs, maybe places where they otherwise make sense, for example, where that setback isn't a concern. So the E and the G footnotes would appear to be in conflict, and the question is, how do you resolve those two things?
Ms. Dallas, would you like to respond to that?
I'm not sure that I'm prepared to respond to the question. I don't have my zoning code in front of me right now.
That's fair. I see Mr. Tortenson.
Commissioners, I'll comment on that. I think the first footnote, I think you said it was E, states what is allowed without by right, without any conditional use permit. The conditional use permit provision in G allows for greater height, but requiring a conditional use permit requires closer scrutiny and a public hearing in which we can look at the specifics of the site and determine whether the additional height is appropriate there. And so in this case, I think the staff report notes that there's just that one portion of the building that extends northward, and then it's it ends up being a kind of a small triangular portion of the fourth floor that is the part that triggers the height. So the question before you all is, in this case, is that a reasonable height, given this particular location and context?
Thank you. Mr. Taggart, would you like to follow up with anything?
No, that's really helpful, and I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you. To my colleagues, any other questions or comments from Ms. Dadlis? I think I had one, and I'll talk to the applicant, Ms. Dadlis, but I'm interested in the level of, if you know, level of community engagement around this project.
Chair Baker, the applicant can probably respond to that question better than I can, but I know that he did take the project to the district council to seek their support for the variance and to present the project. I don't know if it was more than once, but I know that once he identified the need for the conditional use permit, that he was in communication with the district council to seek their support for that component of the project as well.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions or comments from my colleagues, I would like to call the applicant forward and ask if you would like to add anything to the staff's report, and if so, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, this is Matt Baroe from Bright Pixel Design. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Yep, Matt Baroe, 802 Lower Johnson Circle, St. Peter, Minnesota.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything to staff's report?
Yeah, the only thing is I did meet with the district council several times now. The very first meeting, they identified their concerns about traffic, so I tried to really work with them to make sure that the people coming and going and the 60 new families that will be in this area can get around safely. So I kind of reworked the site plan per that request. And then also they brought up the idea of a solar study. I did see that there is a person right across the alleyway that has some solar panels. So because of that, I flipped the building, even though it would work slightly better with the lounge we have in the lower level to have it how it was originally, but I thought it would be better for their access to natural light to flip it. So that's why you have the L in the place that it is right now. Yeah, I definitely am interested in the comments I got from Michelle Besky and Ramona Peter. I'm hoping that the staff report and the sunshade study that was submitted helps to alleviate their concerns. That's all I have.
Thank you. I did have a follow-up question, and it is around, in the staff's report, it provides us information that there's proposed a total of 60 units, mixed studio 1 and 2 bedrooms. I'm interested in your studio or your smallest units. Could you give us a sense of square footage, and or are they considered micro apartments?
I would call our 1-bedroom units micros, just because if they were a studio, they would be a pretty nice big studio. But because you're separating that into a bedroom area and a living room area, I would consider that micros. We only have 4 actual studios in the building. Those ones are actually fairly spacious as far as studios go. And then the 1-bedrooms I would consider micros, and the 2-bedrooms I would consider small but not micro. And I do have numbers if you need to know, specific square footages.
That would be helpful if you're getting that, just to provide perspective and context.
Yeah. Just give me a minute or two. I should be able to find it here.
Oh, no problem. I guess while you're looking for that, I'll move on to Commissioner Hood.
Hi, thank you, Commissioner Baker. I have a question for the applicant, as it pertains to the north elevation. So you go to page 13 of the PDF in the packet. This doesn't pertain to any zoning, but if you face the north elevation, which is the rear of the property, on the left side, there's a large 4-story blank wall. I'm curious, what is there? Are there not windows? Is that utility space? And how is it decided upon having that blank wall right there? Thank you.
I was thinking this question would probably come up. I'm intending to build those units with as much repeatability as possible. So what I've done is I've done basically 3 units, and I've tried to use those throughout the whole building. So on the side, what you're seeing there is the side of a unit that has a bathroom, kind of a laundry area, and nothing that would really require natural light for the inside. And what I wanted to do is, because that is fairly high, kind of, if there was windows there, they would be kind of gazing down into the backyards. It's kind of a keeping privacy, for people that are there in the houses there, to not have people kind of leering into their backyards. I do have windows facing north in the section of the buildings further away from the alley, because I didn't think that would be, odd. But that was kind of a conscious choice to do that, just to kind of keep that as much privacy as possible.
Understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Hood. Any other questions or comments for the applicant at this time? Okay, if not, thank you. I may call you back just to respond to the public hearing, public testimony.
Sure.
All right, I want to move forward and open up the public hearing for this application. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Again, is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? All right, hearing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? And last time, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application?
The traffic through the alley.
Are you here to speak in opposition of the application?
Just on the, yes.
Could you state your name and address for the record?
Mike Scott, 1514 Eigelhart.
All right, and you have 2 minutes. Anything that you'd like to express at this time?
The alley is pretty narrow, and I would like to see it in a one-way direction, because you can't get 2 vehicles coming up the alley. And if there was an emergency, the fire trucks that have been in the alley are awfully tight going through it. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? And last time, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? All right, hearing none, the public hearing for this application is closed, and I will move forward to my colleagues for discussion, or I will entertain a motion. I think before we do that, I see Mr. Torres.
I'm just wondering if the applicant wants to respond to the opposition.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I would like to bring forward back up the applicant. Would you like to respond to the person that was in opposition?
Yes. That question did come up about traffic in the alley from city staff during the site plan review as well. And what we've done is we've actually reworked the site to have the primary traffic come in from Marshall. So the only traffic you should have are what I would consider overflow parking which is, I believe, 6 or 7 stalls along that north side. And we are locating that 4 feet away from the existing alleyway. So in that section, the alleyway should actually be 4 feet wider than it currently is. So we're trying to make it as good as possible and leave it better than how it currently is. And I do have the areas for you as well. The studio units are 485. The 1-bedroom units are 490. And the 2-bedroom units are 723 square feet.
Thank you so much for that information. Any other comments or questions for the applicant, for my colleagues? Okay, again, thank you. I see Commissioner Riley.
Yeah, I just had I guess it's a question or a comment for staff, but only sort of. I really appreciated the shadow study that was included in the application, and I just, it would be great if that could be something that was often included as needed. I really, really appreciate it, so thank you for including that. And with that, I guess I'll move approval of the CUP application.
All right, I have a motion for approval of the application by Commissioner Riley. Do I have a second?
It's Commissioner Grill. I'll second.
All right, I have a second from Commissioner Grill. I'd open it up for any additional discussion at this time from my colleagues. All right, if none, I'd like to move forward with the vote. Sonia, can we vote, please?
Okay, Commissioner DeJoy,
Yes.
Commissioner Go,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales.
Because this was heard by the BZA, I'm just going to abstain for it because I didn't get a response from Mr. Warner. So I'm just going to abstain for now.
Okay, Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
Commissioner Said,
Yes.
Commissioner Tagioff,
Yes.
Chair Baker.
Yes.
7. Unanimous.
I think we did have an abstention for one.
Right, 7 with 1 abstention.
Got you. Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. That motion passes. All right. Thank you, Ms. Dallas. Thank you also to the applicant. We will now move on to our next item, rezoning case from Mr. Jervy. 1164 West 7th. It's rezoning from RT2 Townhouse Residential to RM2 Multifamily Residential. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jervy.
Hello, Chair Baker, zoning committee members. It's been a while, but my case is the application to rezone 1164 West 7th from RT2 to RM2. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. So, as I said, the application is to rezone from RT2 to RM2. The lot is a little over 11,000 square feet. There's 80 feet of frontage along West 7th here. It is surrounded by a mix of uses, as is common up and down West 7th, as well as several different zoning districts, including some RM2 across, kind of kitty corner across West 7th, and further down West 7th on the same side of the street. The previous use on the lot was sober house, and the applicant is proposing to redevelop the lot into 10 to 14 multifamily with 10 to 14 1-bedroom units this is a very preliminary sketch just to give you a general idea of what you could see on the site. But this would be West 7th here, kind of at the angle with 4 units on the ground floor, and then imagine that stacked for 3 stories. Again, very preliminary. This is what was shared with the Fort Road Federation, and they mentioned that in their letter of support. So I just want to make sure that we all have the same information. But sometimes we'll have site plans associated with the rezoning. Sometimes we don't. At this stage, it's very early, so there could be changes down the line. I just want to make sure that was clear. And the application meets the findings required for a rezoning, including consistency with the comp plan, compatibility with the way the area is developed and surrounding uses, and this would not be considered spot zoning because of the nexus between the intent of the RM2 zoning district and the comp plan goals and policies as outlined in the staff report. And for those reasons, I'm recommending approval of the rezoning application, and I'm happy to take any questions on any findings in general.
Thanks, Mr. Jervy. You're right. It has been a while. Good to see you. So I will open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments from Mr. Jervy. I see Commissioner Grill.
Welcome back to the committee. When I was going through the staff packet, I noticed that there was, I think this is the case that had all of the DSI calls, and there were concerns that maybe those were nuisance-based calls. And I'm just curious, has there, I'm hoping for the applicant that has stopped and that it's not part of this process. Do we have any information on that? Otherwise, I can direct that question entirely towards the applicant.
Through the chair, Commissioner Grill, that's actually my next case.
Okay, well then never mind.
You're ahead of the game.
Well, yeah, sort of.
Thanks, Commissioner Grill. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Jervy? The only comment that I'd make, I guess I will hold off and I'll save it. I see Commissioner Hood.
Thank you, Chair Baker. I think I may have missed this. Did the Fort Road Federation District Council vote in support of this proposal?
Through the chair, yes, a letter of support was included in the packet from the Fort Road Federation. Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mr. Hood. And the comment that I wanted to make is, Mr. Jervy, I appreciate within the staff support report under findings where you laid out specifically under
I'll get you later.
Under 3, for the comprehensive plan where you laid out within bullet point form where it was specifically applicable in support of it. And so I do appreciate that. That was really helpful, and it provided more insight into where staff saw this fitting in within the comp plan. So thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Jervy? If not, I will call for the applicant if the applicant would like to add anything to the staff's report. If so, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Mike Dissad. I'm at 994 Winston Circle in Mendota Heights. Can you guys all hear me all right?
We can, thank you. Would you like to add anything?
This is very similar to another property we've done down on 2222 Stewart. That was ended up being an 11-unit building. These are roughly 625 to 650 square foot units. And we're renting them out roughly 20% below the luxury units you're seeing down the road. We're not going to put the crazy amenities in there, but that's so we can keep the kind of rents down. And so they're just really nice 1-unit one units, and 625 and the layouts we have worked out really well for that. And the last one we did at 2222, which is just off Shepherd, actually rented out before it was even done being built. And then I guess just a side note is my parents actually own a duplex for the last 10, 15 years within 100 feet of this building. So I know they'll be in support of it as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. I think it's Distad?
Yes, sir.
From my colleagues, any questions? Commissioner Rangel Morales.
Did you run the sober house or whatever it used to be before that? Or
no, we purchased it from him, and we actually closed on that like a week ago. So it's now no longer in that ownership, because the current duplex is very tired, and then so we're gonna rent it out as a probably a single family for maybe a year tops until we get everything approved. After that, it will be coming down.
Thank you.
Okay, my computer is a little slow here. Any other comments or questions for the applicant? All right, thank you so much. I may call you back if you would like to respond to the public hearing portion of this application. I will now move forward to open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? And again, is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? And lastly, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? All right, hearing none, I am closing the window for the public hearing in this application, and I will move forward to my colleagues for a motion or discussion.
Chair, this is Commissioner Rangel Morales. I'd move to approve to an RM2.
Thank you, Commissioner Rangel Morales. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Commissioner DeJoy, second.
We have a second by Commissioner DeJoy. Any discussion, any additional discussion at this time? All right, if not, I'd like to move for a vote. Sonia, can we vote, please?
Yes. Okay. Commissioner Tagioff?
Yes.
Commissioner Knight? Can't hear you. Okay.
Yes.
He's one. What did he say?
I think I heard him say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Commissioner Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner DeJoy?
Yes.
Chair Baker?
Yes.
8-0.
All right, thank you, Sonia. That motion passes. Thank you, and we will now move on to our next item, which is also Mr. Jervey. 275 Erie non-conforming duplex. It's a reestablishment of a non-conforming use as a duplex. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jervey.
Thank you, Chair Baker. Again, I'm Anthony Jervey. I'm the staff liaison to Fort Road Federation, and I am going to share my screen again here. So the application is at 275 Erie. You see it's mid-black here between Grace and St. Clair to the north. and it's to seeking a reestablishment of a non-conforming use as a duplex. The lot is 5,400 square feet, including half the alley, per our measurement standards, and has 40 feet of frontage on Erie Street. It is surrounded, for the most part, by single-family homes, and is also surrounded by R4 zoning. The site was originally built as a church. You'll see it here on the old Sanborn maps. So the church with most of the rest of the block was duplexes at the time of this map. So it was built as a church in 1887, and it received approval through the Planning Commission to become a legal duplex in 1968. So prior to 1975, sites that met certain size criteria could be a duplex throughout the city. And this property needed a variance for lot area to be allowed to be a duplex. At some point after that, it was converted into a triplex illegally. We don't have good records on when that happened. And then by the late 2000s, it had fallen into disrepair and was listed as a Category 2 vacant building in 2013. And I don't know when the last time the categories of vacants came up at zoning committee. So just a quick reminder, Category 2 means that there's no sale without approval of the city. You need to be registered. The new ownership needs to be registered with the city. You need to have paid registration fees. You get a code compliance report in order to bring it up to code compliance. You need a cost estimate to bring the property up to code compliance from a licensed contractor, a schedule of when those repairs are going to be completed, and proof of financial capability for all those repairs. So the applicant purchased the property in 2015 and was informed at that time that the property would have to be brought up to code as a single-family building as allowed in R2 or R4 zoning districts, or he would have to reestablish a non-conforming use permit and signed a affidavit saying that understood all those requirements. And the applicant sought to try to get signatures for the non-conforming use permit in 2015 and again later in 2019, and was able to get signatures of owners within 100 feet of the property. You need 2/3 of the owners within 100 feet to sign off to bring the application forward. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the applicant was working toward a variance for the petition requirement because he was unable to get signatures, and provided the affidavit that you see in the application regarding why he was not able to get signatures. But in the meantime, the mayor passed an executive order eliminating the need for signatures on city required signatures as part of zoning applications, and a reestablishment of a non-conforming use falls under that category. So the inability to get signatures is kind of a moot point. But in any case, the affidavit stated concern with people organizing complaints against the property. He also stated concerns of racism. We look back at complaints on the property in terms of city records through DSI. There's 24 complaints against the property since 2017. The vast majority of those were determined to be in compliance by the time DSI went and inspected the property. The application generally meets the duplex conversion guidelines, including the requirements for lot size, gross living area. And I'll show you, here's the main floor of the building. So there's, as an old church, there's one floor kind of elevated off the ground level, higher than you typically see for the first floor of most homes. And then there's a basement unit. So the idea is that there'd be one unit on the main floor and then one unit in the basement for an over and under duplex. And here's a shot of the front of the house. So it meets the duplex conversion guidelines, including lot size, gross living area, off-street parking. Remodeling is limited to the interior, and then it would meet all requirements of the code. And this is a requirement of the staff recommendation. The application also meets the requirements for reestablishment of non-conforming use, including the existing structure is suited to use as a duplex, just given the unique history and configuration of the floors. It's the same use that was previously a non-conforming, a legal non-conforming use for the house. The use in itself would not endanger the health and safety of the immediate neighborhood. The use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and a permit for signatures was waived by the mayoral order. District 7 did not provide any comment. We got one letter of support and 7 letters in opposition. The letters in opposition cited the history of problems with the property when it was a duplex/triplex, including garbage noise, police calls, and other issues listed were non-responsive landlords, poor maintenance on the property, including garbage issues in the front and back, overcrowding of parking in the street and the alley, concern that it has been continually used as illegally used as a duplex in the interim period here, and also that, since it's been a single family home, there's been fewer issues and neighbors want to keep it that way. But based on the findings in the staff report, I'm recommending approval of the application with the condition that it meets all city and building recommendations. And I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Jervey. I'd open it up to my colleagues. Any questions or comments, Mr. Jervey? I have a question. Understanding the affidavit, and also understanding that because of the mayor's executive order, it's a moot point on meeting signatures at this time because of the waiver. My question is, if there would not have been a waiver, what is our process when we receive an affidavit to that? What would we normally do without this waiver concerning signatures, given the reason for the affidavit?
Chair Baker, we had asked the applicant to provide the affidavit with the expectation that would be used as justification for variance for the signature requirements. Given the reasons stated, we wanted that to be able to be seen before the committee, but we needed it to be documented in a way that would give justification to ask for variance, because without documentation, then it'd just become kind of someone's word that, oh, I couldn't get the signatures, so therefore, so we wanted it to be documented in some way.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. So what I'm hearing you say is, in these types of cases where the applicant is saying that he was fearful and concerned and could not get the signatures, the affidavit was required for the waiving of getting the signatures.
That, well, not waiving for the mayor's order waived the requirement for the signatures. Yep. What the applicant would have, in addition to the reestablishment of the non-conforming use, they would have also had an application for a variance for the signature requirements, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the affidavit, take away, I know I'm not trying to make this complicated, so I apologize, but take away the mayor's order and say that this was still potentially the issue. The affidavit allowed him not to meet that requirement.
The affidavit would have been in support of the variance for the signature requirement.
So
you
approves the variance for the signature requirement?
The zoning committee would have.
Okay.
You all would have reviewed, there would have been additional findings in the staff report related to a variance for the signatures that you as a committee would have reviewed and made a finding on.
Okay, I feel like I understand now. Thank you for that. I see Commissioner Tagiao.
Just one factual question, I think, for Mr. Jervey here. This property was purchased in 2015, and we're sitting here in 2021. And just factually, I know it's gone from sort of a desire to convert to triplex or duplex, a sort of direction towards single family and perhaps back to duplex. And just my question is, what state is the property in currently, physically? Is it laid out as a single family or a duplex? What's its current physical condition as of today?
Through the chair, the physical condition is the living quarters are on the upper floor, similar to as they're shown in the staff report. The lower level is used for storage and laundry and that kind of thing, to the best of my knowledge. It has been inspected for building code requirements for C of O, certificate of occupancy, for single family home several times over the last few years, and has been deemed by DSI to meet those standards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments at this time? Okay, I'd like to call for the applicant at this time if they would like to add on anything to the staff's report, and if so, please state your name and address for the record. Oh, I think you're on mute. I think you're still on mute.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Hi, so my name is Jonas Gerber-Christos. I'm actually the son of Eob Gerber-Christos. And due to language barriers, I was going to speak on his behalf. If that's okay with everyone?
Yeah, for one moment, I have someone waving at me right now, I think trying to speak, but I see that you still have a mute button on right now.
Let me see.
Okay, could you state your name and I think you said the son, could you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Jonas Gerber-Christos. I'm Eob Gerber-Christos' son. And I just wanted to say that we've made significant changes to the property. We've added fencing, and we've made changes to the flooring as well as the walls. I just wanted that to be noted, that it's we've made the changes to make them both livable. And I believe the person that was trying to speak was our lawyer. So
got it.
I'll let him take
could you state your address for the record?
Oh yeah, I live 3801 Laurel Court, Eagan, Minnesota, 55122.
Thanks. I want to give your attorney some time to, you may want to call in or.
Okay, give me 1 second here.
Okay. And I feel bad because I know he's been patiently waiting. I will give this another minute or two, and then if we don't hear anything, we'll move on.
Apologize to make everyone wait. You guys can continue.
Mr. Warner, if we still move forward, first of all, is that appropriate at this time, and or should we wait for the attorney?
Chair, good afternoon, everyone. Peter Warner. No, I think it's appropriate to move on.
Okay.
When he's able to contact us, then we can go back to him.
All right. All right. Thanks. I will move forward and open the. Well, first of all, do my colleagues have any questions or comments at this time? And if not, I'll move forward to open the public hearing for this application. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Again, is there?
Baker, this is Aklilu Dunlap. I wonder if I can be sort of insinuated into the discussion. I'm the attorney for the applicant on 275 Erie.
Yeah, Mr. Dunlap, you can. I'm just going to finish up this public hearing portion, and then I'll loop right back over to you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone to speak in favor of the application? Hearing none, is there anyone to speak in opposition of the application? Is there anyone to speak in opposition of the application? And again, is there anyone to speak in opposition of the application? All right, hearing none, I will officially close the public hearing for this application, and I will loop back around to Mr. Dunlap. Would you like to add anything to the staff's report? And if so, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you all, and I so apologize. I don't know why I was not being heard. In any case, my name is Aklilu Dunlap. I'm an attorney with Dunlap Law Office, BLLC. I thank you, Chairman Baker, and other commissioners, and Mr. Jervy for your hard work and for the opportunity to defend this application. In addition to what has been said, and in addition to your astute review of the documents, I just want to reiterate how this particular experience, reestablishment of a duplex, really is sort of the undergirding of a lot of American and community-oriented policies. One, this property was vacant for a very long time, and as the poor neighbors of this surrounding this particular property well know, vacant properties, condemned properties invite a lot of societal ills, mostly in the form of criminal activity, typically involving drugs. But Mr. Gabriel Christos took this on, and he sort of rehabilitated, resurrected this property to its continuing state of occupancy. Its condemnation status changed because he brought it to city code compliance. He brought it to a condition whereby it could be occupied as a rental property. It has not been perfect, but this property is far better than it has been. I think a lot of the resistance to all the work that we have done for the past few years is related to the history prior to Mr. Gebro-Christo's ownership. In any case, he seeks to reestablish it as a duplex because the current status is too large for a single family home for most people. The lower level, which cannot be occupied, is used as storage space and or during time of improvement, a workplace for vendors and other skilled laborers. If it were reestablished as a duplex, another housing unit would be introduced. Another affordable housing unit would be introduced, and that's a good thing in a community that cares about people who about fair housing and also people who don't have housing security. Additionally, it would generate rent. That rent would go to a tax base that would support St. Paul, Ramsey County, Minnesota. It would provide additional funding so that Mr. Gebro-Christos can continue making the improvements that he has been intending, that he's planned. It's a modest building. I saw that you showed a picture of it, but it's too bad that we don't have pictures of it from before because it is night and day by comparison. It is also imperative that this be reinstated because what it will do is it will complete an American story. Mr. Gebro-Christos escaped a war. He came as a refugee. 500,000 people from his country died of that war, but he came and adopted American values, American dreams, values like hard work, responsibility. He's not asking for any special favors. He's not asking for any handouts. He just wants an opportunity to characterize this property the way it was characterized back in 1968. And he will continue doing the hard work. The benefit is great. When he purchased the property, it was valued at under $100,000. It now is valued close to $200,000, and that's because of the work that he has done. That will benefit the community around him. And he asks for that opportunity to continue the story of success and to remove these barriers that so desperately seem to affect him, even during my participation with his representation. And with that, I will just stay quiet and await your questions if you have any.
Thanks, Mr. Dunlap. Could you spell your name, your first name, I'm sorry?
It's shocking that you don't know how to spell my first name. I'm kidding. It is spelled Aklilu.
And could you state your address for the record?
Absolutely. 57 North 4th Avenue, unit number 102, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55401.
Okay, thank you. I will open up questions for Mr. Dunlap. I see Commissioner DeJoy.
Just a quick question for the applicant. When this converts to a duplex, is it the applicant's intention to live there and rent out the unit, or would both units be rental?
My understanding is both units would be rented out. I should say, and if you will allow, the gentleman that spoke before me, the young man is Jonas Gebro-Christos, is the son of the applicant, Commissioner DeJoy. He has told me that he has undertaken real estate courses whereby he would operate and manage that property, the background checks, make the improvements that would allow parking on site. But to my understanding, it would be a 2-unit rental property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the applicant?
And if I could add something to that, Aklilu, to the question that was just asked by.
Could you state your name again?
By Andy Joy. Jonas Gebro-Christos, the son of Gebro-Christos.
Yeah. Yes. No, please.
So we do want to rent one of the units, but my father also wanted to use one of the other units for my younger brother. He just graduated from Concordia University and is looking for housing in the St. Paul area. And so he wanted to have him be able to use that second unit as a living space as well as an office space for himself, so that he'd be able to work remote and continue his studies.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the applicants? All right, I will move forward to my colleagues for discussion and/or would entertain a motion.
This is Commissioner DeJoy.
All right, Commissioner DeJoy.
Yes, I think this property would benefit in being redeveloped as a duplex. And I think it's very friendly to the neighborhood that the owner, it would be owner occupied essentially, because the relative of the owner would be there. That always helps with property management. So I will make the motion to approve the, is it a conditional use permit?
It is a reestablishment of a non.
Or reestablishment of a duplex.
Do I have a motion by Commissioner DeJoy? Is there a second?
I'll second. Commissioner Said.
Great. I have a second by Commissioner Said. Any discussion? I see Commissioner Grill and I also see Commissioner Hood.
This is Commissioner Grill. I don't know if this is important, but we didn't include the condition in the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Grill. With that, that condition is that the applicant should adhere to all applicable code requirements and obtain a certificate of occupancy for the 2 duplex units. Would I guess Commissioner DeJoy accept that as a friendly amendment to add the condition?
Yes, absolutely. I don't have the written language in front of me because I'm having computer issues here, but yes, with the conditions as recommended by staff.
All right, she accepts that friendly amendment. Mr. Warner, is that enough to still be able to move forward, or do we also need acceptance from the second, the person that seconded the motion?
Oh, I think that's enough. I'm guessing that Commissioner DeJoy, because of the computer issues, just didn't get a chance to get that in, but I think it was implied in her motion.
Got it. Thanks, Mr. Warner. And thanks, Commissioner Grill. Any other, Commissioner Hood?
Yes, thank you, Chair Baker. I was gonna say some things in support of this. Understanding neighbors' concerns, I don't think that we should hold the property moving forward, people wanting to do the right thing. I don't think we should hold them accountable on this. So I was just going to speak in support, and I'll yield any further comments.
Thanks, Commissioner Hood. Any other comments or questions at this time before we move forward to a vote? All right, if not, I'll go ahead and move to a vote. Sonia, can we vote, please?
Commissioner DeJoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Grill?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Commissioner Rangel Morales?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
Commissioner Said?
Yes.
Commissioner Tagioff?
Yes.
Chair Baker?
Yes.
8-0.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Jervey, and also thank you to the applicant. I will move forward to our last item for the evening, Alter Logistics, a conditional use permit to allow internal conveyance pits and at 801 Barge Channel Road. And for this, I see that we have Mr. Williams. It's been a while.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Baker, commissioners. It's good to see you all. With your permission, I would like to share my screen. I have a brief presentation. One moment. please. Are you seeing an aerial photo with some text on the left?
I am not. We are not at this time.
Oh, well, something didn't work. How about now?
We do. We see it.
Okay. And you can clearly hear me, so we're good to go. I do apologize. That was what I believe they call operator error. So the case before you, the last case for tonight, is related to the city's floodplain regulations. Longer-term members of the committee are probably familiar with this type of case. In certain circumstances, construction in the floodplain, that specifically the flood fringe portion of the floodplain, requires a conditional use permit. And that is in keeping with the city's obligation as a member of the Federal Emergency Management Agency flood insurance program, which allows those who wish to purchase flood insurance to do so at reduced rates. The trade-off is that we require as a city that they meet certain standards in construction. So this may also look familiar to members of the committee who are not joining us today. And as an aside, welcome to the 2 new members. The committee actually approved a CUP for phase 1 of this project back in 2020. The applicant is now back for phase 2. Together, the 2 projects, phase 1 was a construction of a new conveyance system, which takes, as you can see in the picture, there's a barge lined up in the barge channel. It conveys there's a conveyor system that brings materials, primarily fertilizer, from barges to the existing building. If you're able to see my mouse cursor there, that's the existing building, and please keep an eye on that for the next couple slides. It'll help you orient yourself. And they will also be conveying it to a new building. The permit being considered today is for construction of that new building. The building is elevated on fill, which would normally mean that they would not be required to seek a conditional use permit. It's elevated to the height of the regulatory floodplain elevation. However, in this case, the applicant, they're proposing 2 pits which are necessary for operational reasons within the interior of the building. I have a little more detail on those coming up. Those pits will extend beneath the regulatory flood protection elevation. As you'll note, if you've reviewed the staff report, the original intent of the applicant was to seek what is called a letter of map revision from FEMA. That would essentially lift the building pad out of the floodplain. It would no longer be considered part of the flood and would move to what's called Zone X, which is basically anything that's not in the floodplain. However, that process is a pretty lengthy one. So in this case, the applicant decided to pursue a conditional use permit, which allows those pits to be flood-proofed as an alternative means of flood protection. So that is what is proposed, and my recommendation is for approval with some limited conditions. This is just another shot showing the zoning. It's located in the Southport terminal, also known as Barge Channel Road, industrial area I2 zoning. So the underlying uses allowed. The CUP is really just about the needs of flood protection in this case. As I mentioned, this was related to this is phase 2 of a 2-phase project. So phase 1, I remarked on the first slide, there was a building. This is that same building in the bubble, I guess I would say, shows where the new conveyance system was approved, and this will lead to the new building, this portion right here. This is another shot from the plans provided by the applicant. Again, here's that existing building that you saw in the first picture. Here's the proposed building. It is quite large. As you can see, for scale, these are parking spaces. And then the pits in question are located right here. So they extend, I believe it's 6 to 8 feet beneath the floor level. The floor level, again, is elevated on fill to above the regulatory flood protection elevation. So that's roughly 2 feet above the 100-year flood. It's about 708 feet above sea level. These extend below that. They're proposed to be what is called dry floodproof. That means essentially that they are made water impermeable. There are also some structural considerations in the event of saturation of groundwater, that there's not any pressure that cannot be sustained, exerted from the outside from water pushing in. Water, of course, likes to go where it will. So with that being said, I'm going to spare the committee going through all the findings. There are quite a few in this case. The key issue here is that these pits are allowed to be below the regulatory flood protection elevation, provided they are flood-proof to FEMA standards, and those standards are incorporated into our code. I am recommending approval with 3 conditions, those being that there be a site plan approval and that those plans be, the final approved plans be, generally consistent with what was included with this application, both standard conditions, and then a third standard condition, which is that both the design and the as-built condition be signed off on by either a registered engineer or other qualified professional as meeting all the standards in the code. I did want to note one small change that I made to the staff report this afternoon after consulting with the city attorney's office. It's really just clarifying the conditions. They're not changed. They're just a little more specific in referencing the language of our code. So you can see the 2 changes were made at the end of finding 3, which is near the bottom of page 3 of the staff report. And then that language is mimicked then in the recommended condition of approval, which is located at the very end of the staff report. Again, the change is very minor. It's just a little bit more specific, referencing both our code and the FEMA standards that need to be met here. So with that, you have my recommendation, which is for approval with the conditions shown in the staff report, with the edit noted on your screen now. And I would entertain any questions from the committee at this time.
Thanks, Mr. Williams. Open it up to my colleagues. Any questions or comments from Mr. Williams? All right. Hearing none, I would like to move forward to call up the applicant at this time. If they would like to add anything to the staff report, and if so, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Jeremy Goldstein. I'm a director of terminal operations for Alton Logistics. I apologize for that. We think this is a great opportunity to put more tons to the Port Authority here and to really make this a beautiful site from the river and from Barge Channel Road. And I'm excited about this process. And if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Mr. Goldstein, would you state your address for the record?
Absolutely. 1663 Eleanor Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. I just want to make sure that my colleagues have an opportunity to ask any questions or comments. I'll open it up to my colleagues. Any questions or comments for Mr. Goldstein? All right. Hearing none, Mr. Goldstein, I may call you back if there needs to be a response due to the public hearing portion of this application. I am going to now open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? And again, is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Hearing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this application?
Yes.
I see Mr. Bob Kraft.
Yes.
All right. Could you provide your address for the record? And you'll have
100 King Street West, St. Paul.
All right, you have 2 minutes, and please provide any public comment that you would like to have at this time.
I'm a member of the Land Use Committee of the District Council. We will not be able to submit a formal response at this time, but we're under the impression that we can do so later. We have a meeting in March, the second Tuesday, and we'll provide feedback then. I have a question about the viaduct that was proposed by the Port Authority 3 or 4 years ago as a part of the Southport Industrial Study that the city did back in 2016 and 2017. Is there any possibility that that viaduct is going to be pursued to deal with the truck traffic that gets jammed up when the trains go by?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kraft. Thank you for that. I'd open it up to the applicant and Mr. Williams. I see your hand as well.
I can't speak to the viaduct that you're referring, but I would imagine you're talking about the train traffic that impedes Barge Channel Road. And to that, I would say that we've been doing all of our best efforts to make sure that that is as accessible and as non-invasive as it can be, but that's not up to us. That is up to the Union Pacific. They have rights over that rail crossing there at Concord and Barge Channel Road, and we've done everything that we can do to make sure that that is mitigated.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Mr. Williams.
Yes, Chair Baker, thank you. Chair, Commissioners, in response to Mr. Kraft's 2 comments, or one comment, one question. In regard to the Port Authority's plans, I do not want to speak on behalf of them because I don't know 100% for sure, but I believe they're still pursuing providing a secondary access and or otherwise trying to provide a relief for that issue where you have trains traveling through what is considered part of the yard, therefore they're traveling at low speed, and then a long train can block that main access to Barge Channel Road off of Concord for some time. I believe it's an issue of funding. Any grade separation would require quite a bit of funding. As to the potential for allowing the District 3 Land Use Committee to comment, the 60-day deadline for action is April 4th. So there is a little bit of time here for the committee to lay it over if they choose to do so. Mr. Warner had his hand raised earlier. I don't know if he has comment. The other option, though, that I would note is if you chose to hold the public hearing open, that would still require some delay. If the committee otherwise acted today, the full planning commission would vote on this 1 week from tomorrow. So that would obviously be before, I believe, before the Land Use Committee of District 3 had a chance to.
Thanks, Mr. Williams. Mr. Warner, did you want to add anything to this?
Thank you, Chair. No, Commissioners, I don't, other than to say that if you wanted to keep the matter open to allow the Land Use Committee to submit something, that's certainly within your prerogative, but if you close the meeting today, that cannot take place.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Commissioner DeJoy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a question for staff or perhaps the applicant. Does this development anticipate additional traffic beyond what's happening right now?
Because we've closed the public hearing of this application, the applicant won't be able to respond, but Mr. Williams will.
I'll take that as my. Apologies, I'll take that, Chair Baker, as my cue. Thank you for the question, Commissioner DeJoy. In the staff report, and I apologize, I'm just looking for it. This was addressed. So based on previous conversations, if you look at finding 5B, which is one of the standard conditional use permit findings that deals with adequate ingress and egress, based on anticipated volumes, the anticipated additional volume of product that this improvement would allow, they were expecting in the range of 13 to 16 additional trucks per day. I do not have a traffic count as to how that compares to the total volume of traffic on Barge Channel Road today. Obviously, Alton is only one of a number of businesses located on that road. The applicant did indicate previously that longer term, they thought they are planning on bringing in a rail spur eventually that would potentially reduce that truck traffic by shifting the mode to rail. I do not know the applicant's timeline on construction of the spur. Finally, I would add one additional comment, and that is that the committee should be aware that the conditional use permit is, in this case, specifically for the method of floodproofing of those pits that are internal to the building. It is not about the underlying use. The underlying use in this case is allowed. The city, obviously, as with any development project, has some authority through site plan review, but the traffic generated is really a result of the underlying use and not the method of floodproofing.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Kraft, you will not be able to speak at this time only because the public hearing portion of this application is closed. So I do see your hand, but I just want to let you know why I'm not calling on you. I do see staff. Mr. Tortons.
I put my hand up because I'm not sure that we did close the public hearing yet. I tried to take pretty careful notes and I don't think it is. So unless somebody else tells me that I'm wrong, I think you could still, I think we're still discussing it and you still could ask questions of the applicant if you want. Sonia, did you get?
No, I don't have them closing it.
Okay.
I'm looking and I don't see it.
I generally try to close it before we go into discussion with, so if I did not,
So I think Commissioner DeJoy was asking a question that maybe the applicant could answer, is my thought.
I just want to add that the reason I asked that was during the public testimony, the opposition had questioned, commented about the traffic, and he specifically asked about a bridge, being built or a viaduct, but I didn't hear the applicant have an opportunity to address the question that was raised by the opposition, and that's why I asked it.
Did I provide the applicant with an opportunity, or am I missing something on this? With responding to opposition?
He did respond. I have notes.
Okay, so let's do this. Mr. Kraft, apparently it's coming across that I did not close the public hearing. I will allow you to speak and then I will close the public hearing and then we as committee members will have a discussion. So, Mr. Kraft, I do apologize. You can speak at this time.
Thank you. On behalf of the Land Use Committee, I'd like to formally request that you lay this item over until the full district council has an opportunity to give feedback. The city and the Port Authority has continually dismissed our concerns about increased traffic. Your study of the area is old and out of date. It needs further review. And lastly, I'd be curious to know what kind of fertilizer is being stored there. Hopefully it's not the kind that can be repurposed as an explosive.
Okay, I am going to officially close the public hearing at this time. And now I see hands. I see Mr. Jordanson and I see Mr. Williams. Mr. Jordanson. I think you're still on mute.
I'm sorry. I was on mute. And I apologize. And I apologize to you, Chair Baker. I think I was correct in saying the public hearing wasn't closed, but we could have asked the applicant to respond to questions. The testimony by somebody else we shouldn't have allowed again. So I didn't notice that it was Mr. Kraft that wanted to speak a second time. I think he was done speaking, I believe. But I think the public hearing is closed at this point. I just wanted to apologize for that.
Okay.
The applicant, Jeremy Goldstein, could have been given a chance to answer questions.
And I think he was. There was a certain area where he said that he didn't feel like he did not answer, and that he did talk to something.
Answer questions.
Okay, so we will now, because I have officially closed the public hearing, I apologize, Mr. Goldstein. I will now, I will entertain a motion or discussion from my colleagues around this application.
This is Commissioner Grill. I'm just wondering if Mr. Warner is comfortable with where we're at, because I'd like to make a motion. I just don't want to do something I'm not supposed to do right now.
Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Chair. I'm comfortable that you have discussed the matters that are pertinent to the application for a CUP to construct facilities below the RFP. And I will just add as an aside, the concerns about traffic and viaduct has really, with all due respect to the district, is not relevant to the application that's before you today. So I don't know, Commissioner Grill, if that influences your question or not, but I would just point that out for the record so you folks don't get bogged down in the procedural aspects of that particular issue.
Okay, thank you. Then yes, Chair, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to move the staff recommendation for approval of a conditional use permit to allow internal conveyance pits below the regulatory flood protection elevation in a new building to be constructed, subject to the following conditions applied by staff. Site plan approval, final plans approved by the zoning administrator, and the applicant shall submit plans and as-built documentation for the internal pit signed by a registered professional engineer or other qualified professional, as written in the staff report.
I have a motion by Commissioner Grill. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Rangel Morales, second.
I have a second by Commissioner Rangel Morales. Any further discussion on this application? If hearing none, I'd like to move forward to a vote. And Sonia, can we vote, please?
Yes. Okay. Commissioner DeJoy?
Yes.
Commissioner Drill. Commissioner Hood.
Yes.
Commissioner Rango Morales.
Yes.
Commissioner Riley.
Yes.
Commissioner Said.
Yes.
Commissioner Taggiaff.
Yes.
Chair Baker.
Yes.
8-0.
Thank you. That motion passes. Thank you to the applicant, and also thank you to Mr. Williams. I just also want to say thank you to my fellow commissioners. This was a little bit of a longer meeting, and so I appreciate you bearing with us and sticking it out. And Mr. Riley, I know that you have to fall off at 6, but hopefully we all will be falling off before 6. So we will follow suit. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you staying connected and engaged in this. And I will see you during our planning commission meeting next week. Have a great evening.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Chair.
Thank you.